Hey, hold that side of the table. Hey, watch out for spilled soup.
A few minutes ago, I was bullied by my mean mother-in-law, and now she's standing there with a look on her face. What's happening in your eyes? My name is Natalie. I'm an office years old. I met my husband, Dylan, at the same work. My husband was my supervisor, and it felt that he was a very strict scene employee. I respected him, but I became interested in him romantically. One day, I confessed my feelings to. I was prepared to be crushed, but I said, okay. The moment Dylan gave his answer, I sank to my knees and cried. After several years of dating, he proposed to me on Christmas Day. I would like to say everything is going well, but in my new marriage and happy life, my mother-in-law soon became a disturbance. My husband has a sister named Brooke. He liked her from the beginning. Until we got married, he lived with his parents all his life. Until he moved in with me, he could any housework. My mother-in-law seems to be a very protective person. If my husband or sister-in-law tries anything,
Sit down and let me take care of it.
she would take any tasks away from. After we moved in together, I trained my husband to do all the housework, and he quickly showed his high specs in housework. On holidays, he sometimes cooks meat. It's quite delicious. How many times have I thought to myself jealous? My husband has recently started getting into cooking, especially making Indian curries from scratch. To be honest, I was a bit taken aback.
I've made too much curry. I'm going it with my parents.
He left with a smile on his face, but returned a few hours later with a troubled look on his face.
Natalie, what do you think of my mott?
I looked away and answered with a small smile, but I guess my face gave me away. He sighed.
I thought so too.
I heard that his mother-in-law immediately started humming a tune and preparing to sing. But when my husband told her he was the curry and going home soon, she got grumpy.
I wonder if that person making me homemade curry, and to make Dylan bring it here where he's tired from work. That girl has got some nerve.
By the way, that girl means me. I don't know why, but my mother-in-law stubbornly refuses to call me by my name. She called me that girl, you, so on. It annoys me every time, but I try to keep it to myself.
And when she found out I made that, she got in a good mood and started me. Well, that was disgusting.
According to my husband, Patty Head said, I'm not a doctor, but I play one on TV.
That's great, honey.
The mother-in-law spoke to him as I worried about a small child, saying she was not hurt. My husband felt sick with that, and quickly.
I've always wondered if I'm being too overprotective. Brooke is the same age as Natalie. That's not good for her, right?
I love you, Dylan. But isn't it a little too late to realize it now? I almost couldn't contain my laughter. But seriously, from the first time my mother-in-law came to visit, I knew she didn't like me. Or rather, I knew she hated me. At first, she smiled at me, but when I said her name, she suddenly became very serious. I was even a little excited, thinking to myself, there is such a person. Since my mother-in-law loved her fan, she had a hard time accepting that her son's wife could be in charge of it. She's full of love for her family, sadly. I feel a little sympathy for my mother-in-law. Brooke, my sister-in-law, has a cheerful personality.
Mom, I see don't know what you're upset, but Dylan and I are already adults. Of course, we're going to get married someday. Give it up already.
Hold on, sweet Brooke, they're only person you can marry. It didn't bother me that my mother gave me the cold shoulder, because Brooke always made me laugh so much. It was the same with my father-in-law.
I'm sorry, Natalie. My wife can't They'll six our children forever.
Thank you for choosing Dylan.
Come on, honey. You can't be upset forever.
My father-in-law patted my mother on the shoulder, and she sniffed. Whenever I visit my in-laws, she's always sulking like this.
Come on, what are you, the Grinch?
I was again trying not to crack up with Brooke's comment. My husband had never seen his mother like this before. My husband thought that my mother-in-law and I were simply incompatible.
I don't think it was so bad when I took my girlfriend to her high school reunion.
I was somewhat annoyed by my husband's sudden mention of his ex-girlfriend, but it all came crashing down after incident. It was a year after we got married. My relationship with my mother-in-law remained the same, and I got pregnant. My husband was very happy, and though we were not yet in a stable period, we stayed at my parents-in-law's house together to celebrate the news.
I'm so happy for you.
Take care of yourself, Natalie. Yes, Auntie now. Natalie, if you need anything, okay?
My father-in-law and sister-in-law are concerned about my body during pregnancy. I was very grateful to hear their kind words. However, my mother-in-law stared at me and said something outrageous.
I wonder if this baby is really Dylan's.
I froze at that unbelievable worse. Of course, it was my husband's child. My mother-in-law had always been cold and sometimes ignored me, but I got her to open up by being patient and kind. From the beginning, all my family has accepted me except my mother-in-law. But now, I don't know what to do anymore. To begin with, I've had a little mental breakdown because of the pregnancy, so I unexpectedly burst into tears. My mother-in-law saw me like that at the party.
Oh my gosh, you act like that, I made.
I guess I was right about the baby. Didn't say anything. Is she nuts? What is this she talking about?
Mom, are serious? Of course it's my... How can you say such a terrible thing? Why are you so cold to Natalie? You...
My raging husband made me cringe.
Yeah, Dylan's right. You're sick man.
Brooke, my sister-in-law, looked at my mother-in-law as if she were looking at a piece of filth. My father-in-law is also quite a quiet man, but my mother-in-law is very loud. It seemed like she didn't expect the so antagonistic.
Hey, you guys. I was just kidding. Right, Natalie? Tell them I was just kidding.
It was the first time she called me, and at the worst possible moment. And I'm the victim here. What am I to say? You want me to say what son won my mind easily?
You are crazy. This is disgusting. Can't you tell the difference between what you're allowed to say and what you're allowed to say? I've had enough. I'm never coming back here again.
And I ran out of the house just like. My husband and I would often fight, always won. He says I'm pretty scary when I lose my temper. He says he doesn't think he can win with the way I look at him. Sometimes he would get as small as a trembling chihuahua. He would come right behind me and apologize for the whole ride home.
I'm never going back to your parent again.
I muttered quietly to myself as I sown the scenery outside.
Of course, I'm not going there either. I feel sorry for my dad, but I'm going to cut him off.
My husband chose me over his family alone was reassuring. My mother-in-law's words made me angry as I recalled them, but I didn't want to think about it. It would hurt the baby. My husband is on board with that. Shh, all I can think about is the baby. The next few months were as peaceful as if the incident had never happened. I told my parents about the pregnancy. They sent me pictures every day, say they bought this and that, even though baby wasn't born yet. My mother-in-law frequently contacted my husband from that day onwards. Every time he received a message, he would show it to me. I read the content of the message, or didn't think she was sorry for what done. I still don't understand why she hated him so much. Brooke often contacted me as well. Apparently, she hardly speaks to her mother-in-law since then. My father-in-law seems to be in a very tight spot. While my mother-in-law seems to be living quite comfortably.
My dad and I have asked Mom why she won't talk to you, but she refuses to answer. Natalie, you've never really met her, you.
Brooke asked me if I had met her mother-in-law before. I've never felt so much dislike from in my life.
Thank you, Brooke. When the baby is, please come to see.
Sure, Brooke said happily. A few months later, I gave birth to baby girl. Her name is Lily, and I wanted her to be someone who makes everyone smile just by being around her. When I returned home, my parents, who had been very strict with me growing up, held Lily in their arms with delight on their faces.
Is a grandchild really so special?
I asked them. I have an older sister already had children before me. It's not even their first grandchild, but they love her so much that they can't wait to hold her.
Of course. Lily has your eyes, Natalie.
It seems like only yesterday when your sister were little.
My mother holds Lily as if she's missed her days. I wonder if my mother-in-law misses her son. Of course, I had my reasons. A few days ago, my mother-in-law called me to ask if I could help her with something. At first, the phone rang, but I was to talk. After a few rings, I received a call that expressed her deepest apologies and regrets. It was painful to think that my son, who I had raised since he was born, was being taken away from me. Raising Dylan had been the most rewarding experience of my life. She said stuff like that. Both my husband and Brooke are adults, but I feel that to parents, children will always be children. Now that I am a parent myself, I think I understand my mother-in-law's feelings a little better. Still, I can't say such heartless thing about the person my daughter chooses in her life. But my mother-in-law seems to be so sorry. So I wonder if I can forgive her. When I talked to my husband about it.
Are you sure? Isn't that too much of it's okay if you don't want to see a bitch?
Just seeing the look on my husband, who was deeply concerned about me, peace of mind. I was getting used to this with Lily, so I decided to visit my in-laws' house. It was the first time since the day pregnancy announcement. I was nervous, as well as my husband visited my parents' in-laws' house for the first time in a few months. When I entered my in-laws' house, they were waiting for us.
Hey, Lily. How have you been? Haven't seen you in a while.
My father-in-law and sister-in-law visited me while I was in the hospital. It wasn't the first time they'd seen. They looked delirious when they saw I had grown up a little. The person in question was standing them.
She is Lily. She looks like Dai-hee.
Everyone there was relieved when the mother-in-law spoke up.
Hey, can you help me prepare a meal?
To my surprise, my mother-in-law asked me to babysit her granddaughter. This made me a little happy. My mother-in-law was trying her best to help me, in her own way. That's what I thought.
What? I'll help you, Mom. Natalie, bother. Just relax.
Brooke was concerned about me and my postpartum body. I replied with a big smile. When I entered the kitchen, the food was already there. I only needed to serve the food.
I'll take this to the living room.
As I was serving the food, I noticed something strange. There were only enough dishes for 5 people, and there were 6 of us.
I'm sorry, but I think we're missing.
I tried to find the missing piece, couldn't find it anywhere. My mother-in-law just looked at me and then suddenly burst out laughing.
There's nothing left. I haven't seen you since the beginning.
She looked at me with a nasty look face and snickered. It seemed that my mother-in-law has no intention of getting along with me. I didn't think she'd do something.
We're a family of 4. You're not. And I hate your name anyway.
That last part stuck with me, but I was too stupid to even listen to her.
You should eat this here.
And with that, she threw me a box one-pot mac and cheese. I couldn't stop laughing and said to,
You're really sick. I don't know what's wrong with you, but I hate you too.
My mother-in-law's face scrunched up in disgust, and she went into the dining room.
Natalie, she's not feeling well. She to rest in the kitchen for a while. She doesn't seem to have much of a sense of humor.
Hey, what a lie. I'll tell my husband later. Well, it seems like I just wasted my today. I sat in a chair and stared into space.
Hey, hey, hey!
I heard my mother-in-law's impatience. Hey, hold that side of the table. Footsteps came thudding toward me.
Natalie, are you okay? Did she do something to you again?
Natalie, we're going to eat here with Mom. You can eat alone over there.
My husband and sister-in-law glared at my mother-in-law coldly as they approached.
Hey, let me in too.
My father-in-law said with a laugh. I picked up Lily in my husband's arms, so happy that I cried.
Hey, guys, look, my dinner is this cheese.
I laughed and put the box of Mick the kitchen table. Seeing this, my family-in-law looked at each other with shocked expressions on their faces.
Really, what do you want? You should be ashamed of yourself. I don't want to be your wife.
My father-in-law yelled at my mother.
Why do you all choose her instead of one?
My mother-in-law's face, which had now turned red in an instant, and she cried like a child. Frankly, we were all a little taken that. Lily had been sleeping, but she woke up to the sound of her mother-in-law's loud voice. In the chaos of this room, my mother-in-law stared at me while crying.
It's your fault. Your name. It's you.
What the?
I didn't understand a word she was. I glanced at my husband's face, but he looked away. His eyes were saying, what is she about to? But my father-in-law was different.
No way.
He looked at my mother-in-law with disgust on his face.
You loved her, didn't you?
What in the world am I being shown? I could only watch the fight between mother-in-law and father-in-law with an expression on my face. My mother-in-law was crying so hard that she glanced at my father-in-law. After a sigh of relief, with an embracing look on his face, my father-in-law spoke quietly.
Well, you know.
According to my father-in-law's mother, in other words. His mother was very strict with my mother-in-law. Her name was Natalie. So, in other words, my mother-in-law is in the category of people who judge me based on my name. Hey, screw you. At this point, I was already about temper.
Yeah, and then there's that.
Apparently, my father-in-law and mother-in-law were classmates in company. And there was this girl who was like my mother-in-law over my father at the time. They were pretty bickering. Even though it's been a few decades since they graduated, when they see each other at reunions, my mother-in-law still seems to be that woman. Even though the woman is married to man and has grandchildren, apparently her name is also Natalie. Staring at my mother-in-law screaming, I tried to calm her down. I felt like an idiot and left the house.
I never thought I'd have to listen to my parents' love story at my age. Natalie, I'm so sorry. I'm so embarrassed.
My husband said helplessly in the Kawe home.
Yeah, right.
I answered him emphatically. Later, I got a call from my father. My mother-in-law didn't listen to him well, so he finally showed her divorce papers. Of course, my mother-in-law cried at him not to leave her. My sister-in-law, who was watching the quarrel, said to her,
I think it's not good for you to stay all the time. Mom, you're still in your 50s. You go out and explore a bit? A local supermarket was looking for employees.
My father-in-law seemed to agree with words, and my mother-in-law started. She seems to be scolded, very strong veteran employee. She always says she wants to quit doing her best. She seems to have started reflecting on how she treated me. I started receiving messages from her occasionally. By the way, I'm ignoring all the messages from my mother-in-law for now. Of course, I don't intend to see her while, for some incomprehensible reason, I'm going to forgive her for the time being. My husband is appalled by her behavior. She's recently begun to seriously cut him off. I bad person? Lily, my daughter, is growing up with a serious illness. Her first birthday is coming up soon, and I am about to return to work. I know it's not easy to balance work and raising a family, but I know I can do this with my husband.